Welcome back to Tim's Kitchen. Today, I want to cook a standing rib roast. Now, this is something that we cook typically every year at Christmas, but Publix has been running a sale on standing rib roast at $6.99 a pound. And so in case you're wondering, this is what a package looks like. And you can see here that it is basically what we would consider to be a prime rib. This is not prime. This is premium. So this would be a premium rib. And it comes with the bones have been cut away, but they've been tied back on so they can cook with the flavor. Now, this one is about 4 pounds, and it's going in the freezer. But what I have for today is this one. Now, this looks old and rubbery and leathery. Let me turn this around here. Maybe you can see part of that a little better in that front camera. That's because I have salted this one down with kosher salt, and it has been in the refrigerator for about 36 hours, air drying. Now, that's an optional piece. You don't have to do that, but anytime that I've got a big chunk of meat like this is typically what I do, is I put it in at least 24 hours to let it air dry and let that salt soak in. And so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to season this, and then I've got the oven heating up to 500 degrees. We'll talk about that again here in just a minute. So let me take my ring off. I've got, put this over here again where you can kind of see it. I've got about 1/3 of a stick of butter. It may or may not be enough, but that's what I've got. And then I bought some garlic and onion, black pepper, and sea salt. Let me put that up here. This is from McCormick. Now, this is not a recipe. This is an idea. So if you want to season it with something else, if you want to leave the butter off, you can. The butter and the seasoning should help to give it a real crispy look to the outside. So I'm just going to put some of this in here. It's a lot of meat, so it can handle a lot of seasoning. And it's probably not soft enough. I don't know, maybe. Yeah. If it's, and my butter typically sits out on the counter so that it's soft for whatever I'm using it for. But if you needed to, you could pop this into the microwave for, I don't know, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. You don't want it to melt. You just want it to get soft enough that you can use it as a rub. So there we go. And then we just need to get our hands dirty. So I'm just going to take some of this and I'm going to smear it on. Now, I don't know that I have enough to cover the sides here because I probably needed a little more butter for a piece of meat this big, but I am going to use at least some here on this bigger side. And then let's see if I've got enough left here. Maybe. Okay. This particular recipe relies on math. So this roast, I'm going to pull my calculator. This roast was 6.06 pounds. 6.06. And it needs to stay in the oven at 500 degrees 5 minutes for every pound. So I'm going to multiply this times 5. That's 30.3 minutes, and I'm going to round that up to 31. So it's going to stay in the oven for 31 minutes. Now, I'm going to set the timer so that the oven shuts off at the end of 31 minutes. And then I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to open the door. As Chef John says from Food Wishes, I think it is, I'm not even going to look at the oven. I'm going to leave it in, after that 31 minutes, I'm going to leave it in the oven for 2 hours with the oven off. No doors open. And then we will come back and see what this looks like when I'm done. So let's pop it in here. Now, I have removed one rack from the oven so that I can set it just a little lower. And we're going to cook time 31. Now, when that oven goes off, then I will set the alarm again for another 2 hours. And we'll get back to see what that looks like when we're done. We're just about ready to pull this out of the oven, and I because it's been 2.5 hours since I last did this first part of this video, I forgot if I said this or not. So I'm going to say it now, and then if I said it already, I'll probably cut it out of the video. But when I brought the prime rib out of the refrigerator, I had it sitting on the counter for a little over 6 hours. I needed the prime rib, or the standing rib roast, it's actually a premium rib. I needed it to be as close to room temperature as possible. And even at 6 hours, I'm sure the middle of the standing rib roast probably was still not room temperature, but it was close. You can't just pull this out of the refrigerator and pop it in the oven. So it takes a while. So it was 36 hours dry brining in the refrigerator, and then about 6 hours on the countertop, waiting it to get to room temperature. And I'm just about ready to pull this out of the oven. Okay, here we go. Fingers crossed. This is always the scary time. All right, let us pull this out now. Now, I think, let me get this up underneath here. Hopefully that will show up well. I think you're going to have to agree that looks like magic. So I'm going to pull I'm going to cut the strings. A lot of people cook this slow at first, and then they do a really high heat right at the end. And they will tell you that it needs to rest for, 15 to 20 minutes. This does not need to rest. It has been resting in the oven for 2 hours. So the resting part is over. Now, I want you to notice, before I get too far gone here, how this has blacked up, caked up. That butter and seasoning on the top has done the trick. Now, this will just pull right out, I do believe. I'm going to transfer this over to a cutting board. If I knew what I was doing, this would be a lot easier. So I'm going to move this over here. Hopefully I won't knock it off in the floor. I'm going to set this over so I don't bump it in the floor. And the thing that I want to do first off is I want to take these bones off. And you'll see the bones had already been cut off and just tied back on so that you would get the full flavor of the bones. Now, a rule of thumb for a standing rib roast is every rib means you're feeding 2 people. So just kind of slice down through here, because these are a meal in themselves. Let's see. Let's move this away from the front camera. And I'm just going to slice this down the middle so you can see what it looks like in the center. And then I'll slice a piece off for me to eat. And the idea for a standing rib roast is you want it to be rare to medium rare. And this has turned out pretty well as a medium rare. In fact, if I were getting this in the restaurant, that for me, that might be a little bit overdone. But it's going to be okay. And then I'm going to slice a piece here. And again, ordinarily, I would pull out my electric slicer in order to get through that a lot faster. I'm doing an awful lot of transferring here. I do apologize for that, but let's just put this on a plate. So this would ordinarily feed 6 people, which means it's going to feed me 6 times. I'm going to take a little bit of it up to my mom, but she would never eat this whole piece. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off right here. And you can see what that looks like. Even though it's not prime rib, it's premium rib. It's still very soft, very tender, very moist. And it is very good. Now, this kind of a thing is ordinarily, if you're getting it as a standing rib prime roast, it can be $13, $14, $15 a pound, depending on where you're getting it from. So to be able to get it for $6.99 a pound means that it's very affordable. Go and talk to your butcher. Sometimes they will have a sale going on you may not even be aware of. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy dinner, and we'll see you next time. That crust on the outside, superb.